I had a coach many years ago. I was flailing. What do I do? I was talking to everybody. What do I do? What do I do about this? What do I do with that? And this coach was like, you're going to do nothing. You're going to actually remove shit. And I was like, you cannot be serious. I've got to do more. Obviously, I'm in this place because I'm not doing enough. And she was like, yeah, you're going to do less. She's like, you're going to do the bare minimum you need to do to help yourself pay the bills and whatever. And then that's it. You're either meditating or walking in nature or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I don't want to do that. My comfort is reading and taking in information and talking to people and talking about me and talking about all this stuff. So as I talk to you and I'm feeling this energy coming back down again, I wonder if for you that would help you to get back in touch with this essential part of you, the one that's here to live through you, to live as you, to express itself through you and as you. And it's getting crowded out.
You are listening to The New Man, Beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Do you have an amazing collection of books but a lousy sense of focus and discipline? Do you get excited about new ideas but then feel bad because you don't really do anything with them? And what would happen if you took a break from jamming new ideas into your head? Today's coaching call is with a self-proclaimed personal growth junkie. He can easily spend hours pouring through books and podcasts, but when it comes to taking action, it's like pulling teeth. So we take a look at why he's leaking his energy and then challenge him to reconnect with what really matters. We join this conversation after the guest has already given me a high-level view of his situation. What you're about to hear is an actual coaching call. The person being coached volunteered and gave explicit permission to have our conversation recorded for this podcast. Well, let's chip away at this. There's a lot here. So There's this story that being a personal development junkie, somebody who really likes the ideas and gets excited by the kind of head in the clouds learning aspect of things, and then saying that I'm not somebody that actually implements these things or puts my feet on the ground. That's one part of the story. Is that right?
Yeah, or just long enough to get a sense of it and then moving on to, well, if I can, it kind of swirls from there.
Okay, great. And then I'm at this turning point of really wondering who I am on a much deeper level and feeling the call to really forge my own path, something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, and as I've thought about it, like I was scratching my head earlier this year doing this mountain bike challenge, and you ride a couple 100 miles over a fairly short amount of time, and I always push myself and do it quicker. But I was like, why do I get so focused on like this app and watching these lines go from like black to blue or when you've completed them, and I just like get like bonkers, like that type of focus. Like, where's that focus and that dedication, determination? And I can do that physically, but it seems like in other areas, the battery life to like pour into others was something that I didn't really see before going through that. So,
okay, if you could somehow magically learn something or integrate something or change something or some things about yourself, these qualities or these skills, what would they be? I heard focus, I heard what else? Persistence, or what would you talk about?
Yep, it'd be consistency for one.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Focus is stuff I definitely have written up on a board.
Mm-hmm. What else? Consistency, discipline, focus. What else?
And the more that I've heard it, like happiness is a choice, and just choosing happiness in there, like I think kind of that self-care side of things is something that gets lost in those frustrations or ignoring your own, just being a person that is in a good spot too.
Okay.
But
so if you started some program and at the end of it you had this consistency, you have this discipline, you've got this focus, you've got this happiness and self-care, anything else that would make it just an amazing success for you?
Yeah, I think that's been like a theme that I've thought a lot about, is just as I was pursuing some of these things, like what could I do to like help others help themselves? Like, right. Like I think that a lot of people go through these times of questioning things, or there's tough times, or there's external circumstances. But at the same time, if you wake up, you have that day, and the only reality is today. So what can we do? And I kind of view my life that way, of just focusing on what can I control, and needing the constant reminders more than I thought of being grateful, choosing to be happy, putting one step in, reading 10 pages of a book and not staring at the stack of them that, I had planned. And then it gets overwhelming. So it's kind of chunking that stuff down, I think, is into those manageable steps.
Okay.
And then staying consistent, focused, all these other pieces of the puzzle that actually make it happen.
Okay. All right. And what gives you a sense that you're not consistent or disciplined or focused right now? What's the tell? What is the data?
So I went into business with my wife, and she had started a career that I joined later. And I think that that's the little voice on my shoulder that says, like, I'm not, and it wasn't something that I've helped support, and we've had family and stuff. So I've kind of been a floater to help our busy life. But I think part of me has like that internal, like, man feeling of being a provider, or so it comes down to like a financial scoreboard and things like, what am I bringing, and thinking of like, what is value? It's presenting something that somebody finds valuable and is willing to pay you something for it, type of thing that, I've thought a lot about for tons of different stuff. But so there's probably a big financial aspect to it, of just being able to provide. And I think that's probably the biggest distraction of it all, versus like the other side of that little voice is like, I am bringing those things with my parenting, I'm still involved in the business, just not as much. And so I guess, for lack of better terms, it's kind of just being hard on myself in certain regards.
Okay. So you got this, you got the situation with your wife. It's not bad. It's not broken, but it sounds like there's an aspect of like, I can provide more, I can do more, I can contribute more, I can create more, something that's more aligned with who I am. Something that's the picture that I'm getting. How would you?
Yeah,
how would
and
you
she's
describe it?
she's a top level business person. So like when you're married to somebody that it's just like a top athlete or anything, like their mindset and focus is on production. I'm confident, believe in myself, but I don't have like, and here's the bullet points, or I've mastered whatever, a martial art or a business angle or whatever. I think I've been fortunate and had created a great life, but like it's been through great relationships, I think, is how, but it's been without like you're hired this commercialized skill of marketing or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. The story is I'm in my wife's shadow to a degree. There's not a lot of clarity about what I do. She's in her groove. She sounds like she's rocking it, but I'm not really in my groove, and I'm not even really sure what my groove is. I'm not even really sure what I can bring to the table. And yeah, I can imagine that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair synopsis.
Okay. And then on top of that, I can imagine looking at my life and being like, gosh, look, I start a lot of things and I'm interested in a lot of things, but I'm not applying it to something. I can't really show any measurable progress in like a meaningful way, whether it's financial or like, look, I made a thing and I brought it to the world.
Yeah, I pretty much take it out on my hobbies. So, I grew up doing physical hard work. So like I have a strong work ethic, but I think that that's been kind of like growing up with sports and things, like I physically can apply these principles successfully. And philosophically, I can apply and hold conversations and understand the concepts. But then there's this other piece of the triad of action, application, with all this squirreling, I've become like a generalist. So it's like,
Uh-huh.
even just feeling like it right now, talking like it's, I can just like kind of go off on these tangents and like being in my own head and outwardly just kind of being a generalist speaker. And I can kind of see the patterns of why that would be feeling lost or frustrated, because it's just kind of like taking any fork in the road and going with it.
Okay. What if this is it? What if you're a generalist and could you imagine a world where generalists were elevated in our society and our culture? And like, look at this guy. It's amazing what he's doing. Look at his life. He read these books and
This
then
guy
he
is the most average.
Well, I mean, if we could just take the stigma away from it, I want to help identify what's really the rub here for you. So if there's I should be one of these people because it's kind of not admirable to be who maybe I am in this moment. I'm fishing around here trying to figure out what the real rub is. And so if it was admired and it was okay, and there wasn't a script in place that, especially in our culture of like real achievers and focused and performing and all of that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, generalists don't typically get the attention. So,
Right.
But what if we were able to relax that and it was just, yeah, this is you. This is what you do. Would it be okay if somehow there was an external okayness about it? Would you be okay with it? Or does it feel like something else is missing?
Well, that was just like an analogy that I had of like waking up one day and realized that my focus was so external. And I didn't realize, like, through books or podcasts or, just people that I've met or people that I thought were successful, and focusing so much attention and listening to, that was the lesson that I got out of it. Is like, I put my eyes and my ears so external that I ignored my own eyes and ears of taking the time just to listen to myself a bit more. For that certain amount of time, it kind of left the incongruency side of it, because you're living through others to a certain extent. At least I realized that I was. So I think that's the part of the rub, is like go through that process, listening to myself more, just being comfortable.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like, who am I when I'm not kind of bouncing around learning all this stuff? And who am I when I'm not playing this more supportive role? Something like that.
Yeah, that supportive side is defined because there's certain responsibilities and tasks that I do personally, professionally, the family. There's other things, not necessarily defined, but just natural pursuits that come to me just because I love learning and going that route. But then there is an in between of the application of that learning and balancing these other predefined things of just the artistic side comes to my head. Like, I do have an artistic side or just a creative side that I like to explore and challenge and do things like that to, let's see what happens. And I think that that's something that I just do in my head, not necessarily maybe some other crazy experiments. But
when your time is not taken up with the responsibilities you have with your family's business and your family, where's that time and energy going then?
Part of it, I think, historically and even still today, is like searching for those answers, searching for information, or whether that's books or whatever, just kind of getting that fill of like, I'll figure it out someday type of thing, and pursuing like that type of path. Take a lot out on my mountain bike and just know that stored energy isn't good. So I just go physically burn it out of myself just to put the pressure gauge off.
What if we took the books and the reading and the researching off your plate for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Goes on. When I suggest that, what happens for you?
That makes a lot of sense to me, that it gives you, like, instead of having the four, like, it's interesting, like how like embedded those patterns are. It's what like makes me think like having those things are like an emotional pacifier or something of like.
I love that you caught that as soothing.
Mm-hmm.
When I have this tension in my body, I jump on my bike and work it out that way. Or I soothe by losing myself in the future
Mm-hmm.
because I get to read these ideas and then imagine what they might be like, whatever happens there. But there's that dopamine hit of a new idea and a new future, a new possibility. And it's a form of soothing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at it as soothing, we can take the content out of it. It's not about what you're reading, and it's not about what you're researching. It's just a means to get out of your body in that moment. And everything you're looking for is in your body. The doorway is your body. The doorway is the discomfort of being with you.
Pretty amazing, like how our minds can trick us with how productive, or I guess it's like, right? Why was there a gold mining rush? Like, those people like traveled across the world and dug holes in random spots. And I think that's maybe an analogy that I'm just getting. It's like in this like mental gold rush, and
it's the illusion that we're gonna make progress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that the books and the reading or and the podcasts and the learning is bad. It's not. It's totally not.
Mm-hmm.
It's anything. Anything can be used in that way. And the obvious ones are porn and alcohol and drugs and TV and screens and all of that kind of shit. But even work is a huge distraction for a lot of people. It keeps them from actually having to live their lives. And they can be rewarded for it. Wow, look at him, man. That guy put 60 hours in and he makes gobs of money and blah, blah, blah. And wow, we should put him on a pedestal. He's a nightmare inside. Total nightmare. Has to constantly be stirring up stuff in order to be working and stay away from himself. So if we can see the pattern that this is a soothing function, possibly an avoiding function, we can start to consider that maybe what would benefit you most is emptying your cup instead of trying to fill it all the time. You're wanting something to come in and you just keep dumping more stuff in there instead of, I got to leave some space here.
Mm-hmm.
Got to leave some space in here.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that's been a theme that I've been working on too. Is like just that simplifying. Like, I think it's a pretty accurate representation of what could happen. Is just kind of wiping the slate clean and then adding what's most constructive back in, or choosing if it is even constructive.
Right.
But I think starting with your point of realizing that the emptying or the filling is actually the exact opposite.
So if we come back to consistency and discipline and focus and all of that kind of stuff, if we just think about it in terms of energy, I'm leaking energy.
Mm-hmm.
So where am I leaking energy? And we might be surprised to find that I'm leaking energy by learning, or the illusion of learning, probably reading the same things over and over again. And then I'm leaking energy also by then comparing all the different things I've read in my mind against what I'm doing all the time. And I'm just in this cycle, which is not what am I here to create, or what's the thing that I can explore today and make happen, or whatever. It's a totally different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to leave space. You have to leave space for those things to happen. And that can be uncomfortable if I'm not okay with space. I'm not comfortable with space yet.
Yeah, I think like that space, you're just making me think of like all of the stuff that's filling up this space is this like perverse value add to my life. And so is space going to lose? So that's like a voice is coming in like, if I delete all of that, then what is the value? Like, then I'm just like, going to go meditate by a river all day or something, like.
I love it. So we already have resistance on here because resistance loves these all or nothing, these really dramatic things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to delete it all and I'm like, I won't have anything to do and I'm just going to sit at the river all day. Like just, you can tell, like that's the tell of, well, then my life just goes to shit. So it just looked like, hello, resistance. Thanks for showing up. It creates these terrible all or nothing scenarios.
Right.
Okay, great. We'll catch it. And so we're going to take that off the table. It's not going to be this terrible all or nothing thing. But it is just starting with this recognition that, this is leaking energy. This is leaking my energy. This is where my focus is going instead of what I actually say my focus is worth more somewhere else.
Right.
I'm out of integrity with myself when I believe my focus is worth more when it's focused on something else, but yet I'm giving it to this thing over here. I'm going to feel that rub, and I'm going to trust myself less.
Yeah, I think that last 8 seconds of what you just mentioned is like, that's what it is. Like,
and the other part that you mentioned was brilliant too, which is this is kind of where I kind of show that I'm valuable, is by learning and taking in new ideas and being smart and that kind of stuff. So if you take that away from me, that feels threatening too. Is that right? Something like that?
Well, yeah, like you have all the million personality tests and all that. Like, supposedly I'm like one of the most strategic people. So I think there's truth in anything, and they all hold value. But I think falling victim into actually not taking the time to define what's true for you, and taking a test or a thing and saying, this is so, we have so many people, like you said, like people find that in their work, right? Like, how many letters can you get behind your name and your email signature or whatever? And some people get off on that. I think I'm learning that was more of a perceived value add in my life. and looking at it objectively after the fact, like it's clearly not, especially after 15 years or whatever of doing these repetitive cycles.
Okay.
So I'm good at convincing myself, I've learned.
Yeah, well, it also helps us understand why there's a bind.
Yeah.
It's not just, I'm addicted to information. It's, no, this is where I feel that I add value, that I provide value, that I'm doing something. So you can't take that away from me. Like, I can imagine there's some grip on that. Like, this is, who am I if I'm not on this striving development path? Can't take that away. All right. Yeah. So I can understand why there's this bind. Like, ugh.
Yeah, that's definitely a big piece of the puzzle.
Okay. Right. How are you feeling right now, just as we talk about this?
Yeah, I feel good. Like, like I said, I was mentioning, I've had many conversations or looked at things, but this is a different angle, that value piece to what I've been defined as strengths and all that, is just interesting. And so I'm just kind of ruminating there of, I think there's like some of that acceptance happening is what I'm feeling.
Okay. But the question that starts to come up then is, if I clear this space, if I just allow myself to have more space, there's more room in the cup. What's a better use of that? We may not have an answer immediately. And so that's the part that I want to leave space for, is learning how to sit in that tension. And that is creative tension. That's the creative tension of, I know that I'm being drawn somewhere. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'm not there yet. So I feel this tension. It's kind of like the kid in the backseat. Are we there yet? Like, it's just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Now imagine if the driver's like, I'm not even sure we've left or where we're going. Kid's like, are you freaking kidding me? Right. Okay. But it's a creative tension. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is inherent in the process. Why does this matter? If I've trained myself to get rid of tension, read a book, listen to a podcast, go on the bike ride. I need to get rid of it. I don't learn how to sit with it and then get curious with it. I never learn how to really be with it or be informed by it. Or let it nudge me in certain directions. So essentially, I feel the tension and I release it, or I do whatever I can to get rid of it as quickly as possible, and then it's done. But I never really go deep, never really allow it to drive me somewhere. So it can, at least from my perspective, it can make total sense why there's this lack of depth, why there's lack of progress into any particular areas is because the tension that it requires has been released at regular intervals. We never really get a chance to harness it and move deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not true.
Okay. And I'm curious right now, as we're having this conversation, is there anything in your own intuition or your own mind that is starting to reveal itself and say, now's an opportunity for me to address this or go in this direction? Or sometimes if we move one thing out of the way, another thing can present itself. And I'm wondering if something wants your attention.
I mean, nothing off the top of my head that's jumping out like, hey, here's this, hidden thing but it's more of just like a voice that's just saying, okay, now that tension to that simplification can happen as quick as we can get the distractions out of the way. And how can we get back to like the building blocks of like that foundational piece is what's coming up for me. It's like, let's fix some of the cracks in that foundation again before we worry about building anything or introducing something that, another voice. Like it's the discipline, consistency, and just doing things that serve me and creating that space to see. And I have some good ideas of just a lot of stuff that, I have a million lists or, all these things of whether it's physical or obviously we've talked about the educational or all these other ventures. But I think wiping the slate clean would be interesting to explore that, because I'm just getting like little like hits of like still like, but wait, like, but what about this or that? And just shutting that up for a bit. So I think it's like anything, it's a process and not just something that is a silver bullet.
I'm not sure if you're like me, but if I read too much, my brain just get full. I can't track, and my brain just becomes a place like, oh, I should be doing this, and should be doing that, and should be doing this. I actually don't know. I don't feel this internal guidance system. I don't feel this inner authority anymore. I just hear these different authors and experts in my head. And I have to just shut everything down for weeks or months at times, sometimes, just like, and get back to ground. And my practices then are focused on grounding me, not, well, this is what I read I should do. This is statistics say I should do this. It's like, no, where do I actually feel more in touch with myself? Where I slow down. I feel my balls in my pants, my ass on the meditation cushion. Like I can feel everything. I can feel my heart throbbing. Ah, I'm here. I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
What encourages that? Instead of living my life from like my neck or my nose up, just all in my head, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even as we were to remove some things, I can imagine there's still these things kind of floating around. Like, oh, now we can finally get to whatever. And maybe even let them calm down and then just see what sticks, see what wants to arise.
I've explored like that route too, of like shutting stuff down. And I think fortunately for guys, like there's that comedian that talks about the nothing box and women's brains are all connected, but like, at least we have this nothing box. And so I can go to a space where, like you're just describing, like that connection and all that. But I think I've always had that safety cord or that kind of second parachute of like, that's great. You feel connected and all that. And then, but we have this. And so I think that deletion, there is a lot of resistance. And I think leaning into that will be interesting, because it's the harder life lessons that everything is dichotomy. So it's like, if I have this space I've been filling up with a perceived value or activities or other things, what's to say that there's not total value in doing a lot less? Because in the end, they're both holding the same weight right now, is what I'm hearing, that voice in my head. Like, if I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff and not getting the results I want, what's the value of doing all that without all of the emotional charge or the regrets or all these like little emotional storms that could come up weeks, months, years, or whatever, and this pattern that comes up. And maybe the value is in that self-acceptance, being the world's greatest generalist and rocking that. I think that would create more creative space to just take the day-to-day in the present moment. And like I said, however it happens, I know that it's happened in my life where a thought or something that you connect with deeply, things come into your life and you can't explain it or expect it, but people, things, an email from you that says, hey, do you want a free coaching deal? Like I was literally walking along our river in our town, talking with a buddy about similar topics. And then that email came in and I was like, oh, I'll give this a try. Like this is life, like introducing an opportunity to talk to somebody that I don't know that great, they know of, and enjoy the perspective, and why not? And so I think it's pursuing things that that generalist side is naturally really strong at too. So I think that's another thing too, is like just stop labeling, stop looking at others, stop labeling things. And
you open to trying something right now?
Yeah.
What you just shared with me, I felt a lot of energy coming from it. And I'm curious what it was like for you. Like if we took the words out of it and it was just sound coming from you,
mm-hmm.
what was going on for you there?
Yeah, I mean it's a buzz, it's a vibe. Like that's something I've noticed, mm-hmm. that when I get caught on something that, the energy ramps up quick, and I'm kind of a chill, like whatever, but at the same time, like there's an opposite side of me too that loves to go extreme.
Okay.
I think it's like touching into like that higher energy side of me, especially when something's like aligned, or that maybe it's just some of that learner too, of like that self-discovery piece. It's like, it feels good to feel good, right? And it feels good to be aligned. And so I think that's where those wires get plugged in on that channel.
Yeah.
And it's just like a ramp up.
Yeah. How it occurred to me was you connected some dots and some things that you'd learned and talked about or heard talked about. And then it was like, oh, this is all coming together. And it was as if your feet just left the floor just a few mm-hmm. inches and came off the floor a couple of feet. And you were in this flow of, isn't this exciting? This is what we'll do, and this is the strategy, and this is how it'll be done. And it occurred to me almost as an altered state.
Yeah.
Okay. No judgment. No, not good, bad, or ugly. That was just how I experienced you in that moment. And so, what if in this moment I just helped you come back down to earth? Because as I'm talking to you, I feel like my chest is tight and I'm not breathing into my belly. Mm. So I'm going to relax my abdomen, like all the way down to my perineum. Relax my jaw, relax my face. I invite you to anywhere you're holding tension to, and allow it to come down into your body. So from your head on down into your body. Feel it in your feet. And actually feel the sensations of your feet on the floor. Notice anywhere you're holding tension in your shoulders or in your cheeks, eyes. Check your belly, check your chest again, see if they tightened up. Great. So you mentioned you had kids. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I imagine, you tell me, but you think about your kids where they come out and they were just the same as soon as they came out, or was there something different about them, obviously other than their looks? Was there something you could just tell was different about them from a very early age, from maybe moments or even hours after they were born.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. What if we considered that this was their essence? They didn't have to be taught this. It's too early in the culture for them to adopt this.
Mm-hmm.
They came out of their mama, and there it is, this essence. And I imagine you can look at them even today and still see that in them. My daughter's 13, so she's starting to play with and adopt other things.
Right.
But she'll crack every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, there she is. She's still my little girl. She still laughs, or she still does a thing or whatever. And I was like, there's my little girl. She's still in there. The essence is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we're constantly bringing stuff in, we lose touch with that essence. If it's a sound and I've got all of these different sounds happening, I lose touch with that one voice, that one sound that is my essence. There's a lot of wisdom there. And so what I want to offer here is that this is an opportunity to get in touch with what is essential for you. And that to do so is to create some space, start to create some quiet. So less inputs. And maybe only do what is really important, like the most minimal responsibilities that you have. But to limit it at that. Why? So that there's less noise. You could start to really clue in and, oh, there it is. I think I can start to hear that again. I can start to feel what that is, whether it's a feeling or a hearing or something. But get back in touch with it, because there's so much information going on that there's really no sense of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a subtractive process, not an additive process. I had a coach many years ago. I was flailing. What do I do? I was talking to everybody. What do I do? What do I do about this? What do I do with that? And this coach was like, you're going to do nothing. You're going to actually remove shit. And I was like, you cannot be serious. I've got to do more. Obviously, I'm in this place because I'm not doing enough. And she was like, yeah, you're going to do less. She's like, you're going to do the bare minimum you need to do to help yourself pay the bills and whatever. And then that's it. You're either meditating or walking in nature or whatever. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I don't want to do that. My comfort is reading and taking in information and talking to people and talking about me and talking about all this stuff. Nope. And so it was creating that space here. And so as I talk to you and I'm feeling this energy coming back down again, I wonder if for you that would help you to get back in touch with this essential part of you, the one that's here to live through you, to live as you, to express itself through you and as you. And it's getting crowded out.
Yeah, no, that definitely hits. I like how counterintuitive that seems in the moment too. And that's intriguing to explore something like that. It's it just seems like the exact opposite, like you're saying, of I should be doing more, I could, or like, non-traditional coaching angle of, let's come up with, these aspects and go do that, versus like, that's it. And it also, when you're explaining your experience, like I think that essence is a part of me. So I was just resonating with that of like, that's where I operate best. It's the ideas in the shower type of thing, like creating that space and then just letting it. There's definitely a strong spiritual side to me that I think all this other stuff gets squeezed out. And I think that spiritual side, or that this mystical thing in life, it's available. It is within you, so I do believe in that, and I appreciate that invitation, because it's something I think would be a huge, it'd be a value add, or definitely worth exploring at the very least.
Okay. So let's create an experiment. You open to that?
Sure.
Okay. I'm thinking, I want to make it just super simple, right? So I'm thinking 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And let's think of what would define giving yourself this space to be more in touch with essence. And given that it's like a stirred up aquarium, it's all the silt is everywhere and it just takes time so you're not going to notice anything the first day or the second day. It might take some time to really be like, what the hell am I doing? So if we want to give it some time, what feels like the things that we would want to shift to do less of so that you have more internal space? What could we put on pause just for 2 weeks?
Well, I think one of the first things that jumps is just more efficient or effective time blocking of those essential tasks, or just informing those people in my life that might interrupt some of those moments of, here's when I'll be doing things. And that'd be probably step one. It's like turning the ringer off on your phone type of deal. Yeah, and as much as it pains me to say, the books are creating that thinking time versus the consuming time, or just a meditative like state of going for it and just starting that rewiring process of like just unplugging shit so that the power turns off, so that then it can be more selective when you want it to, what should even be turned back. What do I notice when it's turned off? I think it's viewing it like an experiment like that. Like I'm definitely the type of guy that is like an all or none type of thing. So I think going to an extreme of like just not consuming things works successful, because if you leave that option, or you have to think and use that willpower to, well, I'm not going to do this only in this case, and I'm going to create it, like I don't want to follow a list. I just don't do anything. Great. That makes a lot of sense to me versus here's when you. So
yeah. So no books, no podcasts. If you're driving, silence.
Yeah, this would be good, like an urban meditation retreat.
Okay. What you may notice after a few days is that when those things do show up or arise, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your nervous system. It starts to jack you up. You realize it's like a drug. You're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that a little bit of that was actually stirring me up. And so we just remove it. It's not forever, but let's see. Take these things out of your system and then notice where your brain wants to creatively adjust. Oh, well, a little bit of this wouldn't be bad or whatever. And then it's not that I want you to be miserable staring at a wall. It's just being with yourself. So you might draw, you might write, but you can get into more of a creative, expressive state instead of this funneling stuff into your head.
Yeah.
All right. So you're writing, you're journaling, you're drawing, you're whatever. Walking around town, looking at things, how things are made, or just allowing that part of yourself to be an observer. All of those are more present oriented than, ooh, this is who I might be one day if I get it all figured out and work it out. Right. Okay. Anything else we would add to this 2-week consumption diet?
I mean, I would throw in like any other functions of, I throw like the phone or like apps or certain things like that into the mix, other than a phone used for communication purposes. But
okay.
I mean, that's obviously a doorway that.
Yeah, it's a big one. So screen time. What else feels like it would serve you to allow the space to get in touch with your more essential self?
Yeah, I don't have anything other specific. I think those are the big rocks of it.
Okay. So here's what I'd like. It's Monday now. let's touch base in a week and see how things are going, and then figure out if there's any course corrections, what to add or change or whatever, so that you can use that next week or maybe extend or whatever happens. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So I'll hear from you in a week, but the agreement is to do this for 2 weeks. But we'll check in and see how things are going, what you're noticing.
Cool.
Not trying to be perfect. This isn't a performance. This is a learning experiment. And we're going to learn kind of what happens to your system when you start to remove these inputs. It might be uncomfortable. It might be awkward. Let's expect it. Won't be the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's stay curious. And then as you start to adjust about what to do with your time that feels more rewarding, it feels more essential, start to see what supports that, what feels more expansive for you. We'll see.
Awesome. Okay. Let's do it.
Great. What are you taking away, if we zoom out, what are you taking away from the conversation?
Literally what I'm taking away is like taking away everything, right? like
what's non-essential, right?
That was probably the biggest aha, is like where I was perceiving value in certain activities, or even looking at historical patterns of how I thought or acted or not acted and thought about those thoughts, all that type of stuff, versus realizing where I have been successful and already taking away, just creating a little space in this conversation of getting a different perspective already. And it's taking away the right, wrong, and different, and just looking at it simply to look at it, and to allow myself to just be comfortable in that, and find that essence of myself again, and realizing what works, and like taking ownership in what works for me, and not worry about necessarily how that needs to be perceived or digested by others. And just to be, I think that's the whole goal of this journey, is just to be an authentic self. And that's some of this conversation's helped me explore a different way to reconnect and to live in a more connected way. And
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My desire for you is to keep expectations low. Like if there's something that pops up and says, oh, at the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to be this different person and I'm going to be whatever, or it's really just, let's just see. See what happens.
Awesome.
Okay, man. So I'll look forward to your email in a week. And if you want to ping me beforehand, you forget something or whatever, and you want to touch base on it, please shoot it to me. But then at the latest, a week, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome.
Okay, brother. Good work today, man.
Good talking to you. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.